We're good? Yeah. All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this evening for this month's CBD Meetup. So it's the last 2 days, concluding today. Been fantastic day with bunch of announcement at Ignite happening. Huge. So we're going to talk about that bunch of stuff with more focus today. So as usual, please be at the back. I can see a couple of them still left. So then we're going to talk about upcoming week events, and then some Ignite news, more focus on the app dev area of the announcements, include everything, preview and GA, and a couple of things related to the infrastructure as well, which probably is related to the dev work. And then we have the main session with Michael from XAM Consulting talking about all serverless with function monkeys. So we got a bit playback. Yep. So we are live streaming through our YouTube channel, so it was playing in the background. That's why that playback happens. Anyway, upcoming events in the next coming months in November and December in the Sydney. The first one is the Yo Sydney. A pet event is another one of the main and coolest developer events happening in the Sydney. It's happening on 5th and 6th of December. So if you are a developer, definitely you are familiar with conference, and if you can, grab tickets and join. So we got some good news for you. Simon is going to sponsor some tickets tonight. So if you are willing to go to Yo, go and see Simon in the break before main session, register your name, and then hopefully you are one of the lucky winners tonight going to Yo Sydney. Another one is Kubernetes from Sydney. So it's another basically bunch of coolest speakers, international and local, with focus on Kubernetes and CNCF projects coming to Sydney, talking about all the cloud native applications happening around Kubernetes and CNCF projects. It's again pet event, so go check it out and grab your ticket. We are thrilled to organize Global AI Bootcamp this year. So it's happening in 14th of December, exactly 1 week before going on Christmas holidays. And it's a full day free event, all focused on Microsoft AI Stack and what you can do with Microsoft AI Stack, machine learning, Azure, and all the AI services available from Microsoft, which is still open. So grab your ticket, it's free. And if you are willing to speak at the day, so there is a CFP, it's still open, so you can register your session and talk to contribute your experience to the community. Registration for Microsoft Ignite, the tour in Sydney, is open now. So you can now go and freely register your spot and ticket to attend the Ignite the tour in Sydney. So it's happening in the mid-February next year. So it's going to be cool and awesome, and a bunch of other cloud advocates and Microsoft teams going to go around the world for Ignite the tour, coming to Sydney as well with cool demos, workshops, and showing us a bunch of announcements which is happening at the Ignite recently. So these are the major upcoming events for the developers and other stuff. So go check them out. And in the What's New Azure, this month we're going a bit differently. We're just going to focus on the Ignite news and what's been announced at the Ignite. So a bit different from our general rule in previous meetups. So a bunch of stuff happening at the Ignite. As I said, it's massive. It's huge. And it's now understand why all the product teams were quiet in the previous meetups, and we didn't have that much to announce. So they hold off everything for the Ignite. And yeah, let's go a couple of important to us and to the developers One of the major things announced, and one of the fantastic one, is Azure Arc. Azure Arc is basically centralizing all the management plane in the Azure for different services which you can deploy now. A couple of them are Kubernetes cluster, virtual machines, Azure SQL database, and Azure SQL database for Postgres, Hyperscale, which is called Citus, and Azure API management. These services are now available to basically be managed via Azure Arc. So that's a fantastic platform for managing all of these platform and services in single central place and apply the same security policy stuff and compliance from single place. So if you have a virtual machine, regardless of the OS, Linux based or Windows, so you can bring them over to Azure Arc for management. Kubernetes cluster also, any number of AKS or any on-prem or Azure Stack deployed virtual machine and Kubernetes cluster can also be onboarded on Azure Arc for management, monitoring stuff, alerting, and all those things. Azure SQL database, basically Microsoft enabled Azure SQL database to be deployed to any platform. So now you can deploy to any cloud platform, any on-premise stuff, and even it's available as a container which you can deploy on the edge. So that service is available for deployment or even containerized to deploy to the Kubernetes. All of them are same stuff for Postgres Hyperscale. It's available as a containerized version, can be deployed on any platform or on edge, and they are all available as part of the new Azure Data Services which announced during the Ignite. Azure API management also can be onboarded on Azure Arc for the management. So in Azure API management, they enabled the multi-gateway support. So now you can deploy different multiple gateway in different platforms. Anywhere you have APIs, if you have APIs on-prem or if you have APIs deployed on different platform or on-prem servers or Azure Stack, and maybe other cloud platform, it's not explicitly mentioned, so I need to test and verify. So you can deploy the API gateway wherever your API sits, but bring the management into the Azure API management and then bring that API management into the Azure Arc if you want to manage it through Azure Arc. So that's a fantastic feature from API management team, which you can centralize all the management of your APIs in single place. And basically, as mentioned here, you get a unified view for within the Azure portal for auditing, compliance, applying security, and everything in single place. Also, you can use the Azure Arc for managing the containerized app, regardless of their deployment platform. So anywhere you have deployed a containerized app, it can be ACI or it can be containerized, deployed into Google Cloud or anywhere, you can just onboard them into Azure Arc and do the management and monitoring from the Azure Arc. And you can apply the GitOps-based configuration. Anyone familiar with GitOps? No, not using. Basically, GitOps is basically a concept of managing cloud-native applications with having the Git as a source of truth. So you use the Git similar the way you use for developing applications, and basically storing all the configurations and any artifacts you need for application deployment, infrastructure management, and application itself in single place as a Git repository, and apply for all the GitOps policies in terms of the defining CI/CD pipelines and going through that one. So Azure Arc used that platform for applying like policy-based configuration or deployment from the GitOps. For example, if you are using Helm chart for deploying application into Kubernetes, it's one of the elements which you can use. Or there are other projects and tools which can be included and categorized as part of the GitOps. Basically, the concept is everything you are storing in Git. So Git is source of truth for everyone and in the team. And there is a webinar for basically Q&A and maybe a couple of demos. Anyone is tracking Ignite news or demos? So Gabe Monroy, one of director of Azure applications, which previously used to manage act as a product manager for Kubernetes, has a fantastic demo around Azure Arc and how you can manage different Kubernetes clusters from different platforms inside Azure Arc. So if you got any time, definitely go and check out that demo from Ignite session. That's fantastic. You see how they apply GitOps on top of multiple Kubernetes clusters, deploy in different places, but everything is managed in single place under Azure Arc. So that's one of the very cool demos. You can check it out. But you can register for these webinars happening around the Azure Arc with Q&A session and basically get more insight what you can do with Azure Arc. Then a couple of announcements around Azure Compute. Azure Bastion gone GA, so you can use Azure Bastion. Azure Bastion basically is a fully managed PaaS services to do RDP and SSH into any virtual machine hosted in the Azure platform. So it's GA and available in Australia East, so you can use that without basically provisioning a dedicated VM to act as a bastion or exposing any virtual machine into the public to the internet. So you can use this service totally private and isolated in your virtual network and use that one for RDP or SSH into your virtual machines. Gen 2 virtual machines are GA in Azure now. Now you can use Gen 2 VMs similar to what you use to basically provision and build VMs in the on-prem Hyper-V. Now Microsoft announced and it's available in the Azure, but with few limitations. Not all the features of the Gen 2 is available. There are few limitations, but you can start benefit from the Gen 2 features like UEFI boot, and if you want to have larger disk, larger than 2 terabytes, and for example, the disk controllers are SCSI rather than IDE, and in general, you should get a better performance also. So if that feature suits for your workloads, definitely you can check them out. New VM sizes are announced based on the AMD processor. So there are new VM sizes, DA SV4, EA SV4, which are the first two are general purpose. The second EA series are memory optimized. And in other areas like high performance or graphic-based also available, which are purely based on the new AMD processor. They are not Intel-based, and you get it technically in a lower price. Azure Disk, a bunch of announcements. They support the smaller disk, 4, 8, and 16 gigabyte, and basically with what they say 30x faster in terms of the performance. And Azure Disk, direct upload supported for VHD directly to the managed disk. So at the moment, before this announcement, you had to upload your VHD to the blob and then do conversion from the blob storage to managed disk. But now you don't need that conversion, and the direct from the VHD to managed disk is supported. And encryption with customer managed key also is supported, so you can import your custom keys into a key vault and then encrypt all those managed disks, but with your own, bring your own key. VM Scale Set has a couple of cool features added, which announced. One of them is you can create a VM Scale Set as an empty. So far you could not able to create empty pools of the VM Scale Set. At least with one instance should be available, and then after creation and provision you could scale down to 0. But now you can provision from scratch with 0 instance. Mixed of VM sizes is supported, so now you can have a different VM sizes in your VM Scale Set, which is great for supporting multiple workload types. in your VM scale set and still have the dynamic scalability of the virtual machine. And yeah, basically rolling updates of the VM and images, which also not mentioned here, they support grab the image for VM scale set from the shared gallery, which is added, and rolling update for the VMs, and basically specify the termination, which you can specify one of the instance with 15 minutes. You start get alerts 15 minutes before that instance goes down from the pool, and then you can do all the clean up stuff and finish up stuff before that specific instance disappear from the VM scale set. Azure networking, so now we get the IPv6 support is added to the VNet, so now everyone can have billions of IP addresses in your VNet without worrying about overlapping when you decide to have a bunch of VM in your design in a single subscription. So it's one of the challenges now. Most of the time you come up with overlap the IP addresses, but now you can focus on the IPv6, and that issue should go away because everyone can have billions of IP addresses. So no worries about address space limitation. Azure Monitor got some updates, Azure Insights, and faster traffic analysis. Basically, they do the traffic analysis in the shorter intervals, which is 10 minutes, so you should get a better kind of a real-time insights around what's happening in your network with the network insights and the traffic analysis within your Azure Monitor. Express routes added the satellite connectivity. That's a great feature if you want to have express route connectivity in a remote area which there is no infrastructure available. So it can be enabled via the satellite connectivity from a few partners with Microsoft. Azure peering service for optimized internet connectivity for Microsoft services. So basically that's again partnership between Microsoft and a couple of service providers for optimizing the latency between all the Azure services connectivity, and basically for when peering happens for Azure virtual networks. And for all the SaaS-based services also available on the Azure, for example, Azure DevOps or Azure Office 365. So they partner with few service providers to reduce the internet latency for all those services. Azure Firewall Manager, so from single control plane now within the Azure portal, you can manage multiple number of Azure Firewall in single place. It's a great feature for enterprises which deal with multiple firewalls, Azure firewalls in different workloads, different subscriptions probably. So you can bring them and onboard them in the single place and manage them all in single control plane. Azure Storage Reserve Capacity, it's similar to the virtual machine reserve instance. So now you can reserve the Azure storage for 1 year or 3 years in advance. So similar to the reserve instance in virtual machine. So you pay in advance for the storage and then you can use it. But it's limited to the Data Lake Gen 2 and I think storage V2 also. But there would be a great saving so you can buy 100 of terabytes, chunk of 100 terabytes, or I'm not quite sure, maybe 1 petabytes of the data storage. So you can go and reserve that capacity with the storage. Container registry got 2 cool updates also. So the OCI artifacts are supported, so now you can store OCI artifacts. So any artifacts which supports the OCI spec and generated based on the OCI spec can be stored in the Azure Container Registry. One of the best examples is Helm chart. So now you can store the Helm chart directly inside the Azure Container Registry. For example, if you have a CI/CD pipeline, then you don't need to generate those artifacts and store them somewhere like in Azure DevOps or other storage. So you can directly push them alongside with your images into the container registry. Azure Security Center also got some vulnerability assessment around the images and the artifact, the same artifact which generates. So basically, we can attach the Azure Security Center to the Azure Container Registry, and any artifact pushed to that registry, it gets a scan based on the vulnerability assessment, and you get the report if there is anything which can be optimized and mitigate. Azure App Service Managed Certificates, which is a fantastic news for the developers and basically for any organization who delivering applications. So now you get SSL certificates for free, so you don't need to worry about HTTPS, and basically everyone gets a certificate for free. That's a fantastic news from Azure teams. Azure Functions got a couple of really cool announcements and updates. Premium plan is now GA. That's great for enterprise workloads, which they need to focus on consumption plans for premium, which premium plans, which you can benefit from the features of the premium plan. For example, VNet connectivity if you want to do the serverless with your on-premise stuff, and eliminating the cold start, which basically they keep one instance as a pre-warmed, and that helps to eliminate the cold start of the Azure Functions. PowerShell support is now GA, now with Azure Runtime v2, so you can generate PowerShell, and basically that's great for event-based automation with the serverless platform with Azure. v3 runtime is also in preview, which aiming to support .NET Core 3 as a main feature. So now you can try it out in a preview. Azure Artifacts now have a public feed. So far, you cannot have a public feed from your Azure Artifacts. Azure Artifacts is basically a storage and a platform for supporting package management, like a NuGet, NPM, Java-based package, and all those stuff. Now you can make it available to everyone without any charge. So without any additional charge, everyone can use it for free, similar to like in a .NET space you use for NuGet packages or NPM packages. They also added another feature to the Azure Artifacts, which you can, so far any Azure Artifact, even public feed, is available to the Azure DevOps instance organization. So now they added another capability which you can limit it to the project in the Azure DevOps if you have multiple projects in your organization. So you don't need to share them, and each of them can have their exclusive artifacts feeds. Azure Pipelines got some announcements and updates. So new deployment strategy are added to the Azure Pipeline to support Canary and Canary release in the Kubernetes and container-based deployment, and rolling updates for virtual machine and also cluster-based deployments, which are added, and you can use those features in your Azure pipeline. Azure Artifact Caching is also supported and added to the pipeline, so that's aiming to boost the performance of your build pipeline with reducing and basically with reusing the same artifacts or interim artifacts you generate in your pipeline in the next step, so you don't need to pull every time or download every time. And policy supports also is added, which is, I didn't get quite detailed information around that, but I believe it's about applying policy for artifacts with attaching some metadata and basically have more control as part of your CI/CD pipeline if you generate artifacts, and you can apply policy, and if those artifacts doesn't meet those criteria for that policy, and then get rejected as part of the CI/CD pipeline before pushing to the artifacts repository. There is also a big release note for from AKS team in the Ignite. Heaps of announcements happened around the AKS service. So Dev Space Connect is one of them, which is great for debugging the actually, it's not sure it's previewing GA, or I believe it's GA, but you can, so it means you can use the Dev Space to connect to the cloud services and the cloud workload or AKS cluster, which is already in Azure, but start debugging locally for specific services only, but is still connected to other services in the cloud. So how it works is it redirects for a specified service for debugging all the routing to your local dev space and back to the cloud services. And GitHub Actions also supported. So as part of debugging, you may change anything in that dev space, and you may want to commit all those changes into the Git repo. But you can integrate with the GitHub Actions. What that means is all those changes you did as part of the debugging in the dev space, so you can basically grab all of them as a pull request and use the GitHub Actions to basically use it for the verification between different teams, or for example, if one of the devs want to share all those changes with another dev for review, so they can use these GitHub Actions to grab all those changes as part of PR or anything. So other developers can basically mimic all the same behaviors and the same things that the first developer had in their dev space, do the verification, and if everything is okay, they can push everything into the master branch or the rest of things. Availability zone is added to AKS, so now AKS supports availability zone, so you can enable that for all of the AKS cluster, and if any Azure failure happens or any Azure region goes down, if you have the availability zones enabled, so they are still functional and operational. Multiple node pools is supported, so it's backed by the same feature of the scale set, which supports multiple VM sizes in the same pool. So it's added to the AKS. That means so far AKS only could have multiple VMs, and if you scale this cluster, so it adds the same size of the VM, basically up and down. But now you can, as a backend of the cluster, you can use the scale set, and it supports multiple node pools with the same feature of the VM scale set. Cluster auto scale tuning also is added, so it's great for monitoring your cluster resources, and based on the memory and CPU, you can fine-tune your auto scaling of the cluster. So not like at the moment, it's basically fixed, so similar to what we have in the app services, so you can have a more flexibility around how the auto scaling should happen in your cluster. So securing the cluster or AKS API, so far all the control plane API for your AKS cluster is publicly available, so anyone can start making call to those APIs. But now they added this feature to protect that API from your cluster, so you can protect it similar to like if you want to whitelist your AKS for the management. So you can whitelist your AKS management API, so no one can hit unless they are from trusted network. Some diagnostic improvements happen. So new diagnostic service is added, powered by Azure Monitor. So Azure Monitor is integrated with the AKS cluster, and they grab all the logs from the pods and nodes, and you can enable the new diagnostic features, which use all those telemetries from the platform, and then can provide basically even some smart guidance around how you can improve in those troubleshooting or diagnostics if needed. A new CLI tool called AKS Periscope is also announced, and it's available, that helps to collect the same logs and telemetry from the nodes and pods and export them to the blob storage. If you want to basically keep them outside the Azure Monitor, that's a great functionality. Hybrid support is also added to the Azure Monitor for clusters. So if you have any Kubernetes cluster deployed on-prem or different places like Azure Stack Virtual Machines or any other places, you can bring them for monitoring into the Azure Monitor. Also, Prometheus telemetry also is pulled from the Azure Monitor, and they are available. So if you have deployed Prometheus into your cluster, Azure Monitor now is able to pull all those telemetry and data from Prometheus and use them in the Azure Monitor. So you have all the telemetry, logging, and all those stuff in single place as under Azure Monitor. Cluster health rollup and live deployment metrics also added. So that's a great feature if you are deploying containers. So you can see what happens during the deployment and what container, for example, goes down and how the scalability happens around the container and all those kind of things which happens around the container inside your cluster can be monitored via Azure Monitor. Azure Internet Analyzer is another cool feature added to the platform. Basically, it's helping when you onboard an application into the Azure. So it helps you to basically get the insight and reports around the connectivity from the internet into your workload, and by defining some like endpoints and candidate data points, even content-based. And then you can analyze those reports and see what are the latency between the application and how you can improve. And there are some smart features also added to basically give you some smart guidance around what Azure services can be used to improve the performance if there is anything like not going great or higher than your expectation from the internet latency. Azure Spring Cloud is added and it's in preview. So Spring Cloud is a platform for the Java developers which they can use to build distributed application with the predefined patterns, Java-based application. It's now in a joint effort with the Pivotal. It's available in the Azure and you can use it to basically bring all the Spring Cloud platform and manage them in the Azure Spring Cloud. It's a fully managed PaaS services available in Azure. So if you have a Java workload, probably it worth to check it out. Visual Studio Online, which is basically having a Visual Studio code which you are running inside the cloud. And that's the beauty of Visual Studio Team. So now if you want to interact with one of the Git repos, you don't need anything. You just need a browser. Go to the browser, log into your account, start cloning a repo, start developing and contribute to that repo. So that's it. Azure Quantum is also announced. Its preview is coming, but bunch of features added to the platform. Azure Quantum is enabling organizations and developers to benefit from the Azure Quantum platform and quantum computing, which is collection of software, hardwares, and basically solutions available around quantum computing. So it will be announced soon, probably around December, with the private preview, which every developer and organization can start trying it out. Azure Farm Bits is a bit interesting. It's powered by Azure IoT platform, and basically it's it's all about enabling all the farms and with their data to get the knowledge around what's happening within their farms. But they get the data from different sources. So this platform is designed, for example, to get the data from sensors if you have any IoT devices or edge devices in your farm, plus get the information from satellite, plus get the information from weather stations, plus get the information from drones if there are any drones to help in your farming area or agricultural works, and then apply some inside machine learning and AI around those data, and then generate some reports how they can improve in running their farms. And yeah, basically not much details available yet, but that's the overall definition from the farm bits. Azure Bot Services got 2 major updates and announcements. So Framework Composer, it's a UI-based utility, which is designed to enable every developer or even non-technical guys to be able to design a bot framework and host it on the Azure Bot Services. So you don't need, basically it's aiming, and the goal is less coding with more focus on UI design. VNet integration is also added to the Azure Bot Service, so similar to the App Service and Azure Functions Premium plan. It's available for the VNet integration, and it's great if you want to use your bot with line of business application which you hosted on-prem. Azure Flow there is a renaming plus couple of features added to the Microsoft Flow, which is now called Power Automate. Microsoft Flow is a UI-based great tool for automating the workflows in the organization and automating the repetitive tasks. And one of the great features added to Power Automate is the Flow UI, which basically is a couple of smart AI-based robotic stuff added to the Microsoft Flow, which helps to do kind of a smart automation and doing some smart automation around the workflows in your organization. Power Virtual Agents also added, so it's, again, I believe it's powered by the same Framework Composer. It's the same concept. Inside the Power Automate platform, it enables any non-technical user to be able to generate any virtual agents, which is powered by the bot framework, so low-code or no-code bot building solution. Microsoft Floyd framework, which is around Office 365, it's in preview now, and it enables the organization and developers with few cool features. It's all about basically collaborating, next gen of the collaboration in the Office 365, which enables developers to use that platform also, even if they want in their applications. For example, you can use AI-based services added to the Floyd framework, and co-authoring is another great feature which you already have it in Office 365. For example, if you open a document and start similar to my Google Docs or what we already have in Office 365, start couple of authors or users start modifying one single document, and so now developers can use that features in their application. And document componentizing the document is also another thing which is available and comes with as part of this Floyd framework. So basically, it's all about adding the collaborative next-gen collaboration of the Office 365 and give that flexibility to the developers to use that feature in their application around Office 365. Yeah, so these are our selection of announcements from Ignite, but go check the first link, which is the same show Simon started at the beginning, Scott Hanselman. It has heaps of development announcements, heaps of cool developer new things happening inside the Azure. One of the same app, so he goes through how they built that application that they ordered the launch, and basically it's all about any platform, any developer, any language. So they show you how you can use any language to build the application and deploy and manage it in the Azure. I still haven't got chance today to watch it, but definitely check it out. Apart from all those, our selection of the Ignite news, so you can download the book of the Ignite, which has all the announcements available, and including data, IoT, dev, all the infrastructure, all the dev and everything. So the second link is a great resource if you want to go through all the announcement and news, what happened at the Ignite this year. And the last one, as usual, done by Simon team, great effort around pulling together all the greatest stuff from developer community and send them as a newsletter, monthly newsletter. Definitely subscribe to that and you get the rich content of blog posts, tutorials, and everything every month. That's great. So we take a break, and then 2 minutes, Simon will go through, is it about Yo ticket?
Just go back one. Just go back. There we are. So the dev keynote's probably a good one to watch. So I know Sam covered a lot this evening. Dev keynote kind of wraps up a lot of those announcements, particularly around things like Dev Spaces Connect on AKS. A bunch of the folks, basically they build an app, which is an extension of Paper, Scissor, Rock called Paper, Scissor, Lizard, Spock, which is actually a real game. So they build an online version of that, hosted on AKS. It's running off of all of the common languages that are, we all know and love. Walks through how to build that using things like Visual Studio Code, operate it on AKS. So a lot of the stuff that Sam's talked about are really sort of covered in that keynote. Also looks at some of the cool stuff that our GitHub brethren are doing with actions and their security scanning and fixes. So if you want to go and see how that works, definitely worth having a look. The book of news is massive. It's like 80 odd pages, so it covers every single thing that comes out of Ignite. So if you want to get more than just what we've covered here this evening, that's good. I'm going to shut up because I know you have all been listening for a while, but during the break, just come and grab me at the back and I'll record your name and we'll pick the YOW ticket winners at the end of this evening. To the folks watching our live stream, sorry, that doesn't include you because you have to be here to win, but I guess in future it'll be worthwhile coming along if you RSVP. So what I did want to quickly do before we just have a quick break, this is Arafat, so wait for everybody, say hi.
Hi everyone.
So next month at our Christmas meetup, which again will be here at the Reactor, Arafat's going to be doing a great session on the bot framework and bot services. So those those kind of last couple of bits on updates to the bot framework, I'm sure Arafat will dive into those a little bit further next month. And I think we've also got, did you want to talk about what we're going to do in December as well?
Yeah, as usual, I have one. Similar to previous years, so we have a giveaway to the community, and then you need to RSVP to the next meetup. You need to come along next meetup and then check the conditions, how you can go into the draw for that Xbox giveaway.
So we're gonna put that meetup live in the second half of this evening, so you'll be able to RSVP to that.
We're going to publish it tonight.
The good news is that if you're here and you come to the next one, that you've got a chance to go in the draw. If you work for Telstra, or Microsoft, or Vigilant
Telstra,
IT,
Purple, Vigilant IT, Microsoft.
or you've been one of the lucky winners of a prize in the last 18 months from us. Apart from that, everyone's entitled to win. So if you do want to have an opportunity, make sure you come along next month. All right, let's grab a 5-minute break just to give Michael a chance to set up. I'm going to disappear down the back. Come and see me if you want to go into the draw for YOW tickets for the end of this evening. You do have to be here when we do the prize draw, though, if you want to win.
It is still on if you don't have it. No. You used to?
Here. All right, so if everyone's ready to rock and roll, we'll grab a seat. And over to you, Michael.
All right, thank you everyone for coming. Today I'm going to be talking about elegant serverless with Function Monkey. So just in case you're wondering who this guy is, so I run a company called Zam Consulting. Traditionally we're known for doing Xamarin development, but over the years we've evolved to do Azure and .NET and backend. So generally we're doing cloud native software development and enterprise application development. So just to give you a bit of an introduction to Function Monkey, Function Monkey is a framework for Azure Functions, and the promise of Function Monkey is to write testable, more elegant Azure Functions with less boilerplate, more consistency and support for REST APIs, which is a pretty good promise, as you can see. So basically Function Monkey is an alternative API for Azure Functions with a strong opinion. So if you're a software developer, you probably know that taking a bit of demo code and taking that from a website and just using it and just using that directly and continuing to follow that pattern is probably not a good idea. So whenever you're building a production piece of code, you're going to either bring your own design patterns or use some like well-known industry design patterns. But what Function Monkey is actually just it's an opinionated framework which gives you sort of helper functions, and it's just a way of doing things, and it's actually a pretty good way. It's a pretty nice way, and you end up with a pretty nice application after using Function Monkey and following the patterns. So it forces you to have a good architecture rather than just going in and just writing. I mean, people can go in, and I'm sure a lot of people here can build their own like architecture out. But if you don't want to go and go through all the pain points of your own architecture for like a functions application, then you can just jump in and start using this, and it'll give you a nice sort of starting point. So it's got a lot of boilerplate code that you would need to write within Azure function, and it sort of reduces the time there. And it also has functionality to help you with REST APIs. So it's got like authorization for bearer tokens, claims, and sort of a Swagger UI that's easily built within the framework, that you don't have to go in and add all that code yourself. So normally you'd have to go and add all this code manually, find out how to do it on the internet, and then you'd have to bring that across to your functions project. It's got some built-in code for the ISC input validation. And it's actually a really clean way to build your functions. It separates all the trigger code away from your actual business logic of your application. And it improves the testability of your application. So let's just talk about some of the features of Function Monkey. So before we do that, it's probably good to refresh what it's like to look at a standard sort of function solution. So I'm just going to open up Visual Studio Code here, and I'm just going to open up my functions application. So this is just a sample application that I downloaded from the internet. It's a very standard Azure Functions application. So you can see over the left-hand side I have some of my functions that I'm going to be using in the application, and then I can just jump into one of the applications. So you can see here I've got my function name for the application, and as I go through and I've got that it's a HTTP trigger, I've got the authorization level. So a lot of function samples you'll see will have just C# files with a lot of these different functions that you need to put together to create your function application. So if we wanted to do something really quick, we could just go in and create an Azure function and just create 3 of these or 4 of these. But if the application gets a little bit bigger, then you want to have some sort of like methodology and thought about how you're going to structure your application, where all the code for your application is going to end up. So that's what Function Monkey actually brings to the table for us. So you can see here that this comes into the function, then it's doing some logging, and then it's authenticating. So this authentication code that we go through here, so that's actually a C# file which has been brought into the project. So that's like some extra code that somebody's had to bring in to authenticate with Auth0 in this sample application. And as we go through here, we can see that we're getting the claims, out of the function, and then we're displaying those back to the user. So now I'm just going to open up a Function Monkey application. So just to give you an idea of what this application is doing, this application is a serverless blog. It's not connected to a database, so it's just an in-memory blog, so you can post your blog posts to it and you can get your blog posts back. So over here you can see on the left-hand side that it's a little bit different to the other application. There's a little bit more structure to it. We've got our sort of head, which is our functions project, and then we've got our application, our commands, and our tests. So the main part of this application, or where it's all configured, is in the function app configuration. So there's only a sort of a single file, primarily in this head, which is the functions application. And you can see here we've got the I function app configuration, and then it's going through and it's building our functions host for us. So it's going through and I'm putting all the setup through, I'm putting the authorization in, putting the fluent validation in, and sort of an API endpoint. So the most important part that we really need to look at here at the moment is we've got a functions method. Well, this is where we're going, okay, we want to create some functions, we want a HTTP route, which is API version 1 post. And then from here we can see we've got this HTTP function add post. And then down a little bit lower we've got get post. So I might just run this application just so we can actually see what it does. So that's the application running now. So we've got our add post and get post. So I'm just going to go in here and first I'm going to post. So I'm going to go to API version 1 post. With a post, I've got my authorization and I'm just going to put into the body what I want my post to look like. So I'm just going to send that through. And that's going to come out here. So that's created a post for me. It's giving me the ID of that post back. And the user who created it. So if I come over here to get, so I'm going to get my post with my post ID. So now I've gone through, I've done my post, put my data in, and then I'm going to get my post back out. So very simple application. So just taking a look at the add post command. So you notice here there's no sort of like direct method calling or anything. I'm just declaring it in a declarative manner saying I want a HTTP function which is a post method which uses the add post command. So if we go in here we can see that the mediator pattern is basically, mediator pattern here, if you don't know, not familiar with it, it's separating our logic out. So we've got our command, which is the command which is the request coming in, and then the logic will have a handler appended to it or assigned to it. So you can see in my add post command here, it's inheriting an I command, which is a post, and I've got my new post coming through here. So, and then if we look into the serverless application where most of the logic is for the application, then under the handlers we'll see that we have the add post command handler. So you can see here I inherit from the command handler with the add post command and the return value of a post. So if I just go in here and create another one, you can see that it's coming in here. I've got all my command data. So what that's actually doing for you is it's allowing you a nice clean separation between like how you declare how your API wants to work and then the actual implementation of the logic that you want to run. So to actually get that post working, that's all we really need. We just need those two files. We need the command and then we need the command handler. Sorry? As far as create, yes, yeah. So what you do under here is your choice, really. Yeah. But primarily like for Function Monkey, it handles the commands that are coming in and then the command handlers. And then, so as far as what's happening here is you can see that this add post command, like I didn't do any like deserialization or anything like that. That automatically happens in the framework. It will get that command and it'll get the data that's posted to the function, and it'll put that into a add post command and serialize it for me. And the other thing that you'll notice here as well is in the command. So the IRC container here. So we've got a post repository, an IRC container, and a mapper, which is auto mapper. But we can put whatever we want into the IRC container. And when we create like a new API, we don't need to worry about where we're going to get any of our dependencies from. We just create a new handler, and the dependencies are automatically injected for us. So taking it to the next level, there's also like a validation framework built into the system. So we can see here, if I go back to the post and I remove the title, so you can see here that I've got my error where the post title must not be empty, and that's using the Fluent validation framework. So you can see here, if I go into my validation here for the add post command, it inherits from an abstract validator, and then under the rules it has a post, making sure that the post is not null, and then from there it's setting another validator on that post, which is the post validator. So making sure that the body's not empty, the title's not empty, and it's got a minimum or maximum length. So to connect that up to the system, there's not a lot of work that you'll need to do. You can just jump into the system registration here and add it to your IRC container. So you can see here we've got one for add post. We've also got one for the get post. So as I was saying before, there's a authorization framework built into here. So it's got the token authorization. So to do the token authorization, it's really easy to set up. We've just gone here, set up authorization, saying we want this application to have authorization on it, and then we've said the type of authorization is the token authorization, and you can see here we've got where we want the OpenID validator to come from. And if we come up here, I've just listed the domain that I have and the audience that I have that I need. And that's just a setup with Auth0, using Auth0 in this case because this is what the demo was set up with originally. So that's all you really need to do to set up your token authorization, add it through there. So the next thing that you can actually do is also have claims. So you can see here that I'm having a claim where my add post command, the name identifier, which is the claim, is directly injected into my add post command. So I've got my add post command in here, and then you can see I've got this security property which is injected, and I know that that's my secure property of my user ID. So also another feature of the claims is to actually have a custom authorization. So in this project here, we can actually see if the author is a pre-approved author of the blog post. So if I go in here and just get rid of the TS and run that again. So you see down here, I've actually got an unauthorized because obviously I'm not an approved author, so I can't come in and authorize it. So it's really easy to add all these decoupled authentication methods to the system, authorization methods to the system. So what we also get like built into the framework, which is something that you would normally have to add yourself, is like a built-in Swagger UI. So if I run this application, jump up here, I should be able just to refresh that. And I've got my Swagger UI all built in. Didn't have to download any components, it's just built into the framework. So it also has helpful functions for testing. So when you want to do acceptance testing or integration testing. So basically this allows you to basically take like a command, inject the command into the test, and then it'll give back the response that comes from the whole system. So you can see here, I'm creating my new post, and then you can see here with my execute HTTP async, it's executing the add post command. And then what we're doing is we're actually testing the results that we get back from the system. So you can actually do this for multiple things. You can actually have this integrated into with a service, which is like an integration test, like a live service, or you can do it as a unit test, depending on what you want to do. So that's Function Monkey. It's pretty simple, but it's pretty nice to be able to get sort of your mid-size like serverless function application. I mean, if you only got like 3 functions, then it's probably not worth it. But if you got something that's like a little bit of a substantial size, then you probably want to look at using it. So just going over it again, we've got this like nice Fluent API where we can add our validation, add our like logging in our services, add our authorization, add our functions. We've got our separation of concerns, so we don't actually have any of these like attributes mixed in with our logic. We've got our nice separation there. We've got our input validation, which we don't really need to go and manually validate anything. We can just create a validator, and then that'll get sucked into the system. And you can see here we can easily add Fluent validation. And it's got inversion of control built in for you. And bearer token authentication, as we already saw. And you can see here we've got authorization, and then we've also got our claims where we've got our add post command, and we've actually got a claims which is coming in as a named identifier into the command, as you can see there. And then our testing, as we saw before. And then Swagger endpoints. So it also has support for output bindings, which I don't have a demo of, but these are all the output bindings that are supported in the system. And then triggers as well, so these are all the triggers that you can put into that same like Fluent API. So you can see here we've got all our service bus like output bindings, queue function, and then you can see how that's coming into like a service bus, and then we're putting a subscription on Cosmos DB there as well. So I'm just going to take us through actually building a feature and just show you how easy it is to add a feature to this system. So I'm just going to come in, and then I'm just going to create. Well, we've got add and we've got get. So I'm just going to do a create or update post. So I'm just going to create a update post command handler. And then down here I'm going to create a command for it. And that's going to be our command. And on the update, we want a GUID, which is the post ID, the updated title, and the the body. So that's our update post, so that we're going to add that in, and then from there it's going to be mapped to the command handler. So I'm just going to create my command handler now. So I've got my update post command handler, so I know that just by doing this it's going to have the dependency injection, so I'm just going to get the dependencies that I need, just take them from the add post. Create this as an internal class. And I actually want to return a post here. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to get the request come in, we're going to do what we need to do with the request, and then we're going to return the post, which is actually a very similar code to the query. So what we've done here is we've created a update post command handler, and we've got our dependency injection up here. We've got our execute async, which automatically gets executed, and we've got our update post command. On that command, we have a post ID. So we've got our post document now, so we're just going to update the title to the command value. So what we'll actually need to do, so we've got a command, we've got a command handler, we'll just need to jump in and we'll need to create our function. So we'll do update post command, and we'll just set it as a put. So I'm just going to run this. So I'm going to go in and create, because I need to create it again because it's in memory. So I need to change this. So that's just going back to our add post command. So we've gone in, we've added our post. So now I'm just going to take the post ID and then see if I can update it. So it's gone through and it's updated the post. So if I come back here and then I put in this ID, so you can see that it's gone through. We posted, we updated, and now the data's been updated. But what we might actually want to do is we want to actually validate if this user is allowed to update this data. So what we can do is we can do the same as what we did with the add post command, and we can add a security property in. So we'll actually know the user ID that's coming in. So what we can actually do here is we just check if the post document created user ID is equal to the command user ID. And then from here we can throw a new exception. So that's actually seeing if the user trying to update it was the original user to create it. And then, but what I actually need to do here is I need to change it because it is actually going to be the same user. So I'm just going to fake it. So what I can do here is I've got this unauthorized access exception, but I want to be able to have the response that comes back to the client, have that as a unauthorized. So what I'm actually going to do is come in here. Create an unauthorized access exception. And change that to unauthorized. Oh wait, I've missed one part here. So what I actually need to do is I need to do the mapping of the claim. So I need to do the update post command. So that's mapping that claim with that user ID. And I also want to actually add in this is approved author. So I want the to be approved author as well. So as you can see, you can add as many of these authorizations as you like, and they'll be sort of decoupled from your logic code. So I'm going to go in and create a blog again, and I'm going to get the ID, and then go through and see if I can update it. That's not updated. Let me have a look. Should have had unit tests. Alright, so I'm going to go in, create my post. And then when I try and update my post, oh, there we go, we've got that unauthorized exception. So the one thing that I haven't actually added to this is any validation of the inputs. So adding validation inputs is pretty easy as well, so I just need to jump in here to update post command validator. And then just inherit abstract validator. I think I got that right. Yep. To add post command. Oh no, sorry, update post command. And then I'm just going to validate the different things I want to validate. I want to just ensure that it updates with the title. And then we also want to make sure that it updates with the body. So then I just need to jump into the registration here and just add this in to validate the update post command. So what I need to do, I need to just change this here so it's not authorized for the wrong reason. Actually, that still would have worked. So I'm going to go in again, create my post. And then try and update it without a title. So you can see here that I've tried to update it without my title, and then I'm getting my error. It's really like simple, decoupled, clean code, nicer than just going directly into a function and doing it in a single function or a single C# class. So it's definitely better than, I mean, it's not better than anything else, but it's a good option for sort of a medium-sized Azure function project. So as far as what's next, so this was a project created by James Randall from the UK. He has a blog, Azure from the Trenches. So you can go to his GitHub and you can see his Function Monkey project. You can also, the documentation, functionmonkey.azurefromthetrenches.com. And there's also, like, under the guides, there's a really good guides that takes you through all of this stuff. Really easy to follow. Really fun to play around with. Is there any questions? Yeah.
Couple of questions. I didn't quite catch, is it open source or commercial?
It's open source. Yeah.
Second one, you said the validation would trigger regardless of whether you were authorized or not. That sounds a bit
So the question was, is it open source or not? And yes, it's open source. I haven't looked at what the license is on it actually, but we can look it up if you like. And the second question was the authorization, or the validation was happening before the authorization. As far as the built-in authorization, so there's multiple layers of authorization. There was that first bit of authorization that would run, but then there was also the authorization which was like business-related authorization. The reason I did it like that in there was because if I did it in the sort of the earlier authorization, I would have to query for the same object twice. So I've actually done it the opposite way around. But if you wanted to, you could have the authorization done first. But as far as the basic authorization, which is like an authenticated user, that's done before the validation. I mean, that's the limit of what it does, basically, what I took it through. Yeah. Great. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michael. Great demo. Other than all the cool stuff Michael showed, have you noticed any other interesting things is that? It's Visual, no. It's Visual Studio for Mac.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
So he used Visual Studio for Mac, fully support developing Azure Functions and debugging stuff and everything. So if you are a Mac user, so you have that option.
Yeah, it's actually quite nice. It's good.
All right.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. You want to say goodbye to everybody online?
Ah, yes. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us virtually.